Chapter 696, I want to improve so badly. Shokur immediately said, I'll go to the infirmary later, and scraping a little powder will be enough for research. Zhang Yi nodded, that's good, there's no rush with this. According to the current intelligence obtained in the Jiangnan region, Eclipse Moon had suffered heavy losses and had disappeared without a trace. Most likely, it was recuperating in secret or recruiting help. In other words, Zhang Yi would have a period of peace. Thinking that young Xin Shin had just awakened her psychic powers and was still resting, Zhang Yi smiled and said, let's go eat first. When Xin Shin wakes up, I'll tell you what's happened in the recent period of time. Shokur put her arm around Zhang Yi's shoulder and said with a face full of dependence, okay. Tonight, you have to stay up with me and tell me all about what's been going on lately. Tonight, Zhang Yi had to go to her room and have a good talk. Zhang Yi shrugged his shoulders and said, as you wish. Shokur stayed in the infirmary to look after young Xin Shin. After just awakening their supernatural powers, there would always be a period of adjustment, and someone needed to watch over them to prevent accidents. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, returned upstairs with Lu Karen to meet the others. Shou Haimei and Yang Xia were preparing food, and a sumptuous welcome dinner would take a long time. Zhang Yi met Uncle Yu, who had just returned from exercising and was covered in sweat. However, he now looked nothing like a middle-aged man in his 40s. His body was covered in sinewy muscles, and his arms were even thicker than Shokur's thighs. He was wearing a black sweatshirt and had a towel around his neck, which he was using to wipe the sweat from his face. As soon as he saw Zhang Yi, Uncle Yu's face lit up with an honest and simple smile. Zhang Yi, you're back? How was your mission in Blizzard City? Did you get hurt? Like everyone else, Uncle Yu asked Zhang Yi about his physical condition first. He let out a sigh of relief when he knew that Zhang Yi was fine. However, he then started complaining again. I told you, if you need to fight Neon, let me go over there. He patted his chest, making a thumping sound. Although Uncle Yu is useless at everything else, he still has a lot of strength. If the situation is dire, I can trade places with Neon, at least that way I can help lighten your load a bit. Zhang Yi smiled. Eclipse Moon was no ordinary group of Ronin, they were extremely powerful. It was said that when they were in the Neon Kanto region, they had destroyed dozens of Neon's alien organizations. Uncle Yu's combat effectiveness these days would be difficult to fight head-on with a member of Neon. If the drugs in Blizzard City can really enhance the power of aliens without side effects, then it might be helpful to Uncle Yu and Fat Sue, Zhang Yi muttered to himself. Because they were both aliens below the Delta level. In theory, they could not absorb the essence of other aliens to quickly enhance their strength. However, after the advent of the Great Age of Mutation, no one dared to say that they understood mutation. If, and I stress if, even a beta-class mutant were to push their abilities to the limit, what level would they be at? Zhang Yi thought about this casually in his mind, but didn't delve deeper, as he really didn't know much about it. However, if he came into contact with the Jiangnan region more often in the future, he might have the opportunity to meet their researchers and obtain relevant information. Zhang Yi withdrew his thoughts and said to Uncle Yu with a smile, at that time, the situation was urgent, and the manpower was arranged by the region. How could I just call someone over? Uncle Yu sighed and his eyes fell a little. I also know that there is a big gap between my current abilities and yours. Although I'm also trying to regain the skills I had as a soldier, shooting, fighting, and reconnaissance. But the further back in time I go, the more I realize the fear of aliens. If I encounter another being like Sorakoya, it's simply beyond the capabilities of ordinary humans. Even now, Sorakoya's terrifying abilities have left a deep impression on everyone in the Tianhai City and the Black Robe Squad. That kind of terrifying ability, which could make the world lose its color with a single move, could easily destroy a powerful warrior who had practiced diligently for 2.5 years. Zhang Yi patted Uncle Yu on the shoulder. There aren't many monsters like that in the world, and they can't be measured by common sense. Everyone has their own strengths, and the key is to bring them into play and avoid their weaknesses. There's no need to compare yourself to others. It was just like Yang Xia. Her ability was only to make supernatural food, and she couldn't be considered a war criminal. But she could still play her part. Day or night. Ha, you're right. Uncle Yu's eyes flashed with confidence. There must be something I can do for you. He looked at Zhang Yi firmly and said. Zhang Yi's heart warmed. It was something we did for each other. 2 hours later, Zhou Haimei and Yang Xia finally prepared a large table of food. And Yang Xin also woke up under the care of Zhou Kur. They went to the first floor and, upon seeing everyone, Yang Xin's face was full of composure. However, it was not difficult to tell from the corner of her mouth that she had an unconcealable sense of pride in her heart. After all, she was an 18-year-old girl, and it was still difficult for her to keep her emotions and intelligence on the same level. But it was understandable. Yang Xin took elegant steps over to Zhang Yi's side and gave Su Fatu an unfriendly look. Su Fatu obediently ran over to the side and sat on a small stool. Yang Xin sat down next to Zhang Yi, put her arm around his intimately, and looked up at him with a smile on her face. Brother, Xin can help you in the future. Zhang Yi was curious about Yang Xin's superpower and reached out to scratch her rosy nose. You have always been my best helper. Yang Xin giggled. That's different. In the future, she wouldn't need to hide in the shelter all the time. Just like Liang Yu and Hua Hua, she would be able to stand by Zhang Yi's side and fight alongside him. Zhang Yi suddenly became curious. In theory, Yang Xin's method of obtaining her superpower was also very terrifying, having gone through the cycle of death a total of 37 times. But in terms of the degree of tragedy, it was hard to say that it was more terrible than Zhang Yi's. After all, Zhang Yi had been killed by being cut up alive, and then her resentment had accumulated to the deepest extent in her heart before she awakened her superpower. Although Yang Xin had experienced the feeling of death many times, she subconsciously understood that this was just an experiment, and that at the critical moment, Zhou Kur would save her. She leaned into Yang Xin's ear, and the warm breath from her mouth was exhaled beside her crystal-clear earlobe. What exactly is your superpower? Tell your brother. Yang Xin's neck turned red as she lowered her head like a little devil. Brother, do you want to try? Zhang Yi was shocked. Let me try? In other words, it wasn't a purely offensive ability, was it? Chapter 697, Angel of Lust. Yang Xin gave a playful smile, but tenderly said to Zhang Yi, my ability, I will never use it on my brother. Zhang Yi's expression was strange. What exactly was her ability? Yang Xin didn't beat around the bush with Zhang Yi either. She said, my ability, I named it. Its ability is to manipulate people's hearts. Lust, hatred, all kinds of emotions. As long as someone is hit by the angel's arrow, they will feel these feelings from the bottom of their hearts. And then be swayed by emotions. Yang Xin cupped her face in her hands, her face a morbid flush. What a wonderful ability it is to be able to play with people's hearts at will. Zhang Yi couldn't help but swallow. The ability to play with people's hearts really matched the sick and delicate girl's heart. He was also on his guard, in case the girl took the opportunity to sneak up on him and make him fall in love with someone or hate someone. It would be miserable. Although he understood that Yang Xin would not hurt him. But in the eyes of the sick and delicate girl, there were naturally different definitions of good and bad. So he continued to ask obliquely, probing the nature of Yang Xin's abilities. Yang Xin had nothing to hide from Zhang Yi, and told him everything she knew about her abilities. After listening, Zhang Yi fell into a period of silence. Because the abilities gained in such a terrifying way had extremely high upper and lower limits. If they fell into the hands of an ordinary person, such abilities would be quite tasteless, and one could even play with fire if one wasn't careful. However, if used properly and at the right time, it can create incredible results. Sure enough, it's in line with Yang Xin's character. Soon, the meal was ready, and Uncle Yu also went to take a shower and returned to the living room refreshed. Although Zhang Yi had only been gone for a short time, after experiencing so many things, it gave him the illusion that he hadn't seen everyone for a long time. This warm scene of a large family crowded around a round table, eating noisily together, made Zhang Yi feel very warm inside. During the meal, the conversation soon turned to Eclipse Moon. It was clear that everyone was very concerned about that foreign organization. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Yi decided to tell everyone the truth about that matter. In any case, everyone had to be prepared mentally, because he could not guarantee that Eclipse Moon would not appear in Tianhai City. Zhang Yi calmly told them about the situation of Eclipse Moon and the fact that the Jiangnan regional headquarters had failed in the siege. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the crowd were full of surprise and worry. Even the people of Blizzard City failed? Fat Su looked incredulous. Didn't they send out an investigation team? It was at least on the same level as the Black Robe Squad in the beginning. Plus you, boss, and a dozen other city aliens. The Jiangnan region's 13 guardians, they must have used basically all the forces they could, right? How could they have lost? Zhang Yi took a deep breath and shook his head helplessly. I didn't expect it either. Not just me, probably no one could have expected this outcome. Not only did they lose, they suffered a crushing defeat. The Divine Squad was almost completely wiped out, and their leader, Deng Shintong, was killed in battle. Liang Yu interjected, if Zhang Yi hadn't suddenly appeared and killed 4 members of Eclipse Moon, the battle would have been a complete and utter defeat. Uncle Yu found this hard to accept. He placed a hand on his forehead and his expression was one of extreme pain. Those damned little neon signs. Are they really that strong? Zhang Yi frowned. Deep down, he didn't want to accept this. But the facts were there, and you couldn't just ignore them. At that moment, Xin Shin suddenly spoke up, I can smell a conspiracy in this matter. The table fell silent, and everyone stopped what they were doing. The chicken leg that Su the Fat had put to his mouth was silently placed in his bowl. Zhang Yi turned his head and looked at Xin Shin next to him, conspiracy? What kind of conspiracy could there be in this kind of thing? Xin Shin wiped his mouth with a napkin and said in a gentle tone, Brother, the combat power of a team leader, I have only seen in Bian Junwu. And it was when he was seriously injured and his life was in danger. Do you think that a team leader is easy to kill? Zhang Yi shook his head. Are you kidding? If I didn't know his abilities, even if he appeared in front of me right now, I would still find it difficult to kill him. Intelligence was extremely important in battles between different people. Suddenly, Zhang Yi thought of something. You mean, the opponent couldn't have killed Deng Shintong and the other members of the Divine Squad so easily without knowing their abilities? Xin Shin looked at him and smiled, at the very least, they could always escape, right? Zhang Yi thought of Deng Shintong's abilities. He knew that Deng Shintong could manipulate light, which was one of the best abilities for hiding attacks and escaping. If a captain-level person was determined to escape, unless the opponent was an Epsilon-class foreigner, it would be absolutely difficult to kill them. But did the opponent have an Epsilon-class foreigner? Judging from the feedback from Zhu Zheng and the others, it was clear that there was none. If there really was such a being, Eclipse could have completely wiped out the entire Neon Archipelago before clashing with the Huaxia country. And according to intelligence, they also cannot confront the boss of the Kanto organization head-on in Kanto. Zhang Yi muttered, but there is an extraordinary person among them with the ability to prophesy. Through this ability, it would explain why they predicted Deng Shintong and the others' supernatural powers, wouldn't it? Xin Shin tilted her head to the side and gave a faint smile. Brother, if that person with the ability to predict the future can really predict the abilities of the other party, then I think she must already be at the Epsilon level. Because in a duel between people with special abilities, the advantage of having prior knowledge can affect the outcome of the battle by more than 30%, and even more than 50% in group battles. If they have someone with such abilities, why didn't they just finish off Izumo in the Kanto region? Zhang Yi couldn't help but put down his chopsticks. He had not previously considered these questions carefully. However, after hearing Xin Shin's analysis, a creepy feeling slowly arose in his heart. Are you saying that Blizzard City has a mole? Zhang Yi looked at Xin Shin and said, somewhat unbelieving. This. I'm not willing to believe it, Zhang Yi said. Shokur also said, a traitor in Blizzard City? That's unlikely. What would they gain by cooperating with the Ronin? The others also expressed disbelief. Xin Shin, however, calmly said, although this sounds outrageous, no matter how you analyze it, the strength of the Jiangnan region is definitely superior to that of the Ronin organization. Therefore, if we analyze it using normal logic, naturally we would not think that there is a traitor in Blizzard City. But what if we think about it from another perspective? Could it be that someone in Blizzard City is deliberately using Eclipse Moon to deal with the Divine Squad? As far as I know, Blizzard City is not united as one. Zhang Yi's words instantly gave Zhang Yi a wake-up call. The Deng family had very high prestige and power in Blizzard City. Deng Shintong was, firstly, the successor of the Deng family, and secondly, there were also rumors that the Deng family intended to elevate Deng Shintong to the position of successor to Zhu Zheng. After all, in the end times, life and death were unpredictable, and no one knew how long Zhu Zheng could live. Moreover, it was always necessary to prepare for the rainy days and train a group of successors for old Zhu. This was to prevent accidents, similar to the ancient system of crown princes. Zhang Yi's thoughts became even more chaotic. If he thought about it that way, the situation was much more terrifying and serious. Because Zhang Yi had no idea how many factions there were within Blizzard City. There was even the possibility that Zhu Zheng himself wanted to get rid of Deng Shintong. After all, while he was still in power, someone was already eyeing his throne. The power struggle was very subtle.